The projector displayed my thermal storage prototype in crisp detail. I stood at the front of the conference room, my hand steady on the remote, walking the board through 6 years of work. My voice carried confidence I'd earned through countless late nights and failed experiments. Then Marcus Hammond, our CEO, cut me off mid-sentence. "Emily, that's enough." His voice sliced through my presentation like a blade. "Please sit down." The room went silent. My finger froze on the remote. "Sit down?" I looked at him, confused, waiting for the punchline that never came. He gestured to a man I'd never seen before, someone in an expensive suit who'd been watching from the corner. "This is Trevor Caldwell. He'll be taking over the thermal storage project moving forward." The board members shifted uncomfortably. A few nodded like this made perfect sense. My throat closed. I couldn't breathe properly. Trevor walked to the front, and I stepped aside mechanically, my legs moving without permission from my brain. He picked up my presentation remote like it belonged to him. The board applauded politely. I stood there, invisible, while my work continued without me. Something inside my chest cracked, and I felt it splinter into pieces I wasn't sure I could ever put back together. After the meeting, Marcus called me into his office. The walls were lined with awards and photos of him shaking hands with important people. He sat behind his massive desk, relaxed, like he hadn't just destroyed me in front of the entire board. He slid a thick packet across the polished surface. "I need you to transition all patent materials, research notes, and prototypes to Trevor by end of week." My vision blurred. The words on the packet swam together. I whispered, "It's my work." My voice came out smaller than I intended, almost like a child's. He smiled, and that smile made my stomach turn. It was the kind of smile you give someone when they've said something adorable but irrelevant. "Not anymore, Emily. This is a company project. Trevor has experience scaling technologies like this. You did good foundational work, but we need someone who can take it to market." Foundational work. 6 years reduced to a foundation someone else would build on. I wanted to argue, to scream, to flip his desk. Instead, I nodded. My hands shook as I picked up the packet. I walked out of his office feeling like I was disappearing, like my body was becoming transparent with every step. In the hallway, I pressed my back against the cool wall and closed my eyes. "My name is Emily Vaughn." I repeated it silently, like a mantra, like I needed to remind myself I existed outside that room. I built thermal battery technology from scratch. I solved problems seasoned engineers said were impossible. I worked weekends, holidays, birthdays. I missed my sister's wedding because of a critical test phase. And now, some consultant in a $1,000 suit was going to walk away with it. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. I opened my eyes and stared at the fluorescent lights overhead until they burned spots into my vision. Employees walked past me, their eyes sliding away when they saw my face. They knew. Everyone always knows before you do. I pushed off the wall and walked to my desk on legs that felt borrowed. I sat down in my chair, the same chair I'd sat in for 6 years, and stared at my computer screen. My reflection looked back at me, hollow and unfamiliar. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. I thought about the girl I used to be, 24 years old, fresh out of graduate school with a master's in materials engineering. I remembered my first day at Hammond Technologies, how Marcus himself had welcomed me. "We need innovators like you, Emily," he'd said, shaking my hand firmly. "You'll always have a place here." I believed him completely. I worked harder than anyone. While others left at 5, I stayed until midnight running simulations. I ate dinner from vending machines, my meals a rotation of stale sandwiches and energy bars. I believed effort would protect me. I believed loyalty mattered. I believed that if I just worked hard enough, proved myself thoroughly enough, I'd be safe. On my 2nd anniversary, Marcus took me to lunch. "You're exactly the kind of employee this company was built on," he said. I remembered glowing with pride, feeling chosen, special. What an idiot I was. I gave this company everything, and the moment something shinier came along, I became disposable. The memory of that younger version of me, so eager and trusting, made my throat ache. She deserved better than this. 3 weeks before the meeting, I'd walked into the conference room for our monthly innovation review. The moment I entered, everyone stopped talking. The sudden silence hit me like a physical force. My stomach twisted. I looked around at familiar faces, colleagues I'd worked with for years, and they all found their papers incredibly interesting suddenly. Did I miss something? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Marcus glanced up from his phone. No, Emily. We were just wrapping up. But they weren't wrapping up. There are full coffee cups, open notebooks, the projector still warm. I sat down anyway, pretending not to notice the tension. Is something wrong? I asked Marcus directly. He looked at me with that same patronizing smile I'd later see in his office. You're overthinking, Emily. You always do that. The others laughed, a polite laugh that felt rehearsed. I laughed too, even though my hands were cold and my intuition was screaming. After the meeting, I tried to catch Rebecca from finance. We'd always been friendly. Rebecca, wait, I called. She paused, her body language stiff. Everything okay? She smiled tightly. Everything's fine, Emily. Just busy. Then she walked away faster than necessary. I should have known then. I should have started protecting myself. Trevor Caldwell didn't know the difference between lithium-ion and sodium-ion batteries, but he spoke with the kind of confidence that made people believe him anyway. In our first transition meeting, he asked me to explain the core technology. I started with the basics, assuming he had some technical background. His eyes glazed over immediately. Can you slow down? He interrupted, holding up his hand like a traffic cop. Explain it like I'm 5. My face burned. Around the table, my team members looked uncomfortable. These were people who understood the complexity of what we'd built. And here was this consultant asking me to dumb down 6 years of advanced engineering. I swallowed my humiliation and tried again, using simpler terms. He nodded along, taking notes that probably meant nothing. Great, great, he said when I finished. So basically it's just a better battery. It wasn't just a better battery. It was a revolutionary approach to thermal energy storage that could change renewable energy infrastructure. But I nodded. Basically. After the meeting, my lead engineer, Jordan, caught my eye. The sympathy in his expression made everything worse. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted my project back. That night, I sat in my car in the parking garage and cried. Not delicate tears, but ugly, choking sobs that made my whole body shake. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles went white, trying to anchor myself to something solid. An hour passed, maybe more. The garage emptied around me. Security probably saw me on the cameras and looked away. Finally, I wiped my face with my sleeves, checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, and went back inside. My eyes were red and swollen, but I didn't care. I had simulations to run, data to verify. I thought dedication would save me. I thought if I just proved how essential I was, Marcus would realize his mistake. I stayed until 3 a.m. that night, perfecting equations that Trevor would never understand. I drove home as the sun was rising, my body exhausted, but my mind still racing. I fell into bed fully clothed and slept for 2 hours before my alarm screamed. Then I got up and did it all again. I didn't know then that dedication wasn't my shield. It was the rope Marcus would use to hang me, the proof that I'd work myself to death while he took credit. For months before the board meeting, I'd done something I never told anyone about. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. The office was empty except for the hum of servers and the occasional click of the building settling. I was reviewing company intellectual property policies for something unrelated when I noticed a clause. It was buried in the middle of a dense paragraph, the kind of thing most people skip over. The company owned patents for inventions created using company resources during work hours. But there was a loophole. Original formulations developed outside core work hours using personal resources could be filed independently if they weren't explicitly assigned in an employment contract. My heart started racing. I pulled up my contract, the one I'd signed 6 years ago, barely reading it in my excitement to start. I searched for intellectual property clauses. There it was, standard assignment language, but nothing about independent development on my own time. The thermal storage formulation I developed wasn't just company work. I'd spent hundreds of hours at home, using my own materials, my own equipment. I'd cracked the core algorithm on my kitchen table at midnight. Quietly, carefully, I filed a provisional patent. Just me. Just my name. Emily Vaughn, inventor. Back to the present. I packed my desk on a Friday afternoon while my coworkers pretended not to watch. Someone I never found out who placed a cup of coffee near my box. Black, 2 sugars the way I always took it. A silent apology. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I wrapped my few personal items in newspaper. A photo of my parents. A mug my niece made in art class. The small succulent Jordan gave me last Christmas, somehow still alive despite my neglect. Trevor walked past my desk, not even glancing my way. He was on his phone, laughing about something. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Marcus sent a company-wide email thanking me for my contributions and wishing me well in my future endeavors. Reading it felt like being erased in real time. Rebecca came by, finally. "Emily, I'm so sorry." I looked at her. "Did you know?" She hesitated, then nodded. "We all knew something was coming. We didn't know what." I picked up my box. "Thanks for the honesty." I walked out of Hammond Technologies for the last time. The security guard, old Mr. Patterson, looked sad. "Good luck out there, Ms. Vaughn." I made it to my apartment before I completely fell apart. The box dropped from my hands, contents spilling across the floor. I collapsed on my couch and sobbed until my ribs ached. Months of exhaustion, betrayal, and humiliation poured out of me in waves I couldn't control. My cat, Oliver, jumped onto my lap and headbutted my chin, concerned. I held him and cried into his fur. Why wasn't I enough? I whispered to the empty room. I'd given everything. I'd sacrificed relationships, health, sleep. I'd believed in the work, in the company, in Marcus's promises, and none of it mattered. I was replaceable, disposable. The thought made me feel physically sick. I stumbled to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face, but the woman in the mirror looked like a stranger. Her eyes were swollen, her skin blotchy, her expression defeated. I didn't know how to be her. I'd spent 6 years being Emily Vaughn, brilliant engineer, rising star. Without Hammond Technologies, who was I? I slid down the bathroom wall and sat on the cold tile floor, my head in my hands. Oliver meowed from the doorway, worried. I don't know what to do, I told him. For the first time in my adult life, I had no plan, no direction, no purpose. 3 days later, still in sweatpants, still avoiding phone calls, I checked my email. Spam, mostly. Job alerts I didn't have the energy to read. Then I saw it. The sender, Dr. Nina Foster, VP of Innovation, Apex Energy Solutions. The subject line, opportunity for collaboration. My heart stopped. I opened it with shaking hands. Ms. Vaughn, we've been following your work in thermal storage with great interest. We understand you may soon be available for new projects. We'd very much like to discuss your patent work and potential partnership opportunities. If you're interested, please let me know your availability for a confidential meeting. I read it 5 times. Apex Energy was Hammond's biggest competitor. They'd been trying to break into thermal storage for years, but their technology couldn't match ours. Couldn't match mine. I sat back, my mind racing. How did they know I'd left? How did they know about my patent? Unless someone had leaked it. Unless the patent filing was public record, which it was. My hands trembled as I typed a response. I'd be happy to discuss this further. I'm available this week. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The reply came within an hour. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., a cafe called the Copper Bean. Come alone. This is the moment everything changed. I arrived at the Copper Bean 15 minutes early, my stomach in knots. It was a small place, tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner, the kind of spot you'd never notice unless you were looking for it. Perfect for a secret meeting. I ordered tea, I didn't drink, and sat in the back corner, watching the door. At exactly 10, Dr. Nina Foster walked in. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and an efficient walk. She spotted me immediately and slid into the chair across from mine. "Emily Vaughn." I nodded. She pushed a folder across the table. "I'll be direct. We want to license your thermal storage patent. Exclusively." My heart hammered. I opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside was a licensing proposal, preliminary terms, royalty structures. The numbers made my vision blur. This was serious. This was real. Why? I managed. Nina smiled. "Because your technology is exactly what we need to leapfrog Hammond in the renewable energy market. And because we've wanted to beat Marcus Hammond for years. He's arrogant, and arrogance creates blind spots." She leaned forward. "You're his blind spot, Emily. He threw you away without securing your patent. That was stupid." I looked at the proposal again, my mind spinning. This would destroy him. "Yes," Nina said simply. "It would." I hired an intellectual property attorney the next day. Her name was Stephanie Ross, and she came highly recommended by a law school friend. I met her in her office, a small but organized space with degrees from Stanford covering one wall. I explained everything, my voice shaking. The meeting, Trevor, the patent, Apex's offer. Stephanie listened without interrupting, taking notes. When I finished, she looked up. "Emily, I need you to understand something very clearly. You legally own this patent. You filed it correctly. You developed the core technology on your own time with your own resources. Hammond Technologies has no claim to it." I covered my mouth with my hands. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. But these weren't tears of despair. They were relief, pure and overwhelming. "You're sure?" My voice came out hoarse. She nodded firmly. "I'm sure. I'll review Apex's offer, negotiate terms if needed, but this patent is yours. Marcus Hammond can't touch it." For the first time since the board meeting, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. Stephanie handed me tissues and waited patiently while I collected myself. "What happens next?" I asked. She smiled. "We make sure you get everything you deserve." A week later, strange things started happening at Hammond Technologies. I heard about it through Jordan, who texted me late one night. Recruiters are reaching out to everyone on the team, asking about the thermal project, asking about you. My pulse quickened. Who? Don't know. But Marcus is freaking out. My phone rang from an unknown number. I stared at it, my heart pounding. I knew who it was. Marcus always called from blocked numbers when he wanted to intimidate people. I rejected the call. It rang again immediately. I rejected it again. A voicemail appeared. I listened to it on speaker, my hands clenched. "Emily, it's Marcus. We need to talk about some concerns regarding intellectual property. Call me back immediately." His voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the anger underneath. I deleted the voicemail and blocked the number. My chest hurt, my breathing shallow, but I didn't call back. Stephanie had been clear, no contact without legal representation. Another text from Jordan. He's asking everyone if you took files, if you copied research. He's building a case. I smiled grimly. Let him try. I had something better than files. I had the patent, and my name was the only one on it. Through Jordan and other former colleagues who stayed in touch, I heard about Trevor's struggles. He couldn't replicate my results. The simulations I'd run effortlessly were failing under his direction. The prototype was malfunctioning in ways that shouldn't have been possible if he understood the underlying technology. He was sweating through meetings. Jordan told me during a coffee meetup we kept secret. The board is losing patience. He keeps blaming the equipment, the team, everything except himself. Does Marcus know how bad it is? I asked. Jordan nodded. He knows, but he's too proud to admit hiring Trevor was a mistake. So he's doubling down, throwing more money at the problem. I sipped my coffee processing this. Trevor was collapsing under the weight of work he didn't understand. Work I'd made look easy because I'd spent years mastering it. There was a bitter satisfaction in that. Jordan leaned forward. Emily, whatever you're planning, do it soon, before they figure out how to salvage this. I met his eyes. I'm already doing it. He smiled, genuinely happy for me. Good. Marcus deserves whatever's coming. We parted ways outside the cafe, and I walked to my car feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Apex Energy flew me to their headquarters in Portland for prototype testing. I walked into their R&D facility and immediately felt the difference. The engineers greeted me with respect, even excitement. They asked thoughtful questions about the technology, questions that showed they'd actually read my patent application. Dr. Foster introduced me to the team lead, a brilliant woman named Dr. Kiryong. She shook my hand firmly. Ms. Vaughn, your work is extraordinary. We're honored to collaborate with you. Honored. When was the last time someone at Hammond had used that word about me? We spent the day testing my formulation. Kira's team handled everything carefully, respectfully. They took notes, asked for clarification, treated my knowledge like it was valuable. At lunch, Nina sat across from me in the company cafeteria. How are you feeling? I looked around at the engineers discussing my technology with genuine enthusiasm. Seen, I said quietly. For the first time in years, I feel seen. Nina smiled. You deserve that, Emily. And you deserve what's coming next. That afternoon, we finalized the licensing agreement. I signed it in Nina's office, my hand steady. The contract clicked into place like a lock turning. Everything Marcus had tried to take was now being used against him. The press release dropped on a Tuesday morning at 9. I was in my apartment, my laptop open, refreshing Apex Energy's news page. Then it appeared. Apex Energy Solutions secures exclusive license for revolutionary thermal storage technology. My heart stopped. I read the announcement 3 times, my hand shaking. It detailed the patent, the potential applications, the competitive advantage it gave Apex. My name appeared twice. Emily Vaughn, inventor. Within minutes, my phone exploded. Former Hammond colleagues started texting. Did you see this? Is this real? Oh my God, Emily. Jordan called me, laughing. The office is losing their minds. People are forwarding the press release to each other. Trevor left the building mid-meeting. I could barely breathe. What about Marcus? Haven't seen him, but his assistant looks terrified. I hung up and pulled up Hammond's stock price. It was dropping, not crashing, but dropping steadily as investors processed what this meant. I felt dizzy. This was real. This was happening. Marcus Hammond's company was bleeding because of me, because of my work, my patent, my decision. I closed my laptop and sat in silence, trying to process the magnitude of what I'd just done. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored it. I needed this moment to myself. Marcus's email arrived an hour later. The subject line was blank. I opened it with my heart pounding. Emily, we need to talk immediately. What you've done is corporate espionage and theft of intellectual property. You will be hearing from our attorneys. Call me. Now. The email was cold, clipped, vibrating with barely controlled fury. I read it once, then forwarded it to Stephanie without responding. She called me 5 minutes later. Don't reply, she said immediately. Not a single word. I wasn't planning to, I said, surprised by how calm I sounded. Good. Let me handle this. I drafted a response under her supervision. All communication should go through my attorney, Stephanie Ross. Her contact information is below. I hit send and felt a surge of power. Marcus had spent years making me feel small, insignificant, replaceable. Now I was forcing him to go through lawyers just to talk to me. The power dynamic had completely inverted. That afternoon, Stephanie received a furious letter from Hammond's legal team demanding I cease and desist, return all company property, and surrender the patent immediately. Stephanie's response was beautifully simple. Ms. Vaughn owns the patent in question. Hammond Technologies has no legal claim. Any further harassment will result in counteraction. I loved her for that. The Hammond Technologies board called an emergency meeting. I knew because Jordan sent me a photo of the memo, his hand shaking so badly the image was blurry. Mandatory board meeting. All senior leadership required. Intellectual property crisis. Marcus was being summoned to explain himself. According to Jordan, who heard it from someone in finance, the board was furious. They wanted to know why the patent hadn't been secured, why a consultant had been brought in without proper vetting, why the company's most valuable project was now in the hands of their biggest competitor. Marcus tried to deflect. He blamed me, Jordan said, called you a disgruntled employee who stole company secrets. But the board had lawyers review everything. They know the patent is legally yours. They know Marcus screwed up. During the meeting, Marcus apparently sweated through his suit jacket. His voice got louder as he tried to maintain control. But the board wasn't listening anymore. One board member, an older woman who'd always intimidated everyone, reportedly asked a devastating question. If Emily Vaughn was junior enough to replace with a consultant, why is her patent worth millions to Apex? Marcus had no answer. Someone leaked that he'd called me just a junior employee in his defense. I'd been there 6 years. I had a master's degree and multiple publications. Junior. The disrespect was breathtaking. Apex's product development moved faster than anyone expected. Kira's team was brilliant, and with my technology, they were unstoppable. They invited me to consult, paying me more for a week's work than Hammond had paid me in 6 months. I watched their engineers integrate my thermal storage system into a prototype battery bank. It worked flawlessly, better than it ever had at Hammond, because these people understood it, respected it. At the product reveal event, Kira found me backstage. We couldn't have done this without your groundwork, Emily. Thank you. Her sincerity made my throat tight. I'd spent years being told my work was just a foundation. Here it was revolutionary. The presentation was brilliant. Nina spoke about the technology's applications, the environmental impact, the market disruption. My name appeared in the acknowledgments. Emily Vaughn, inventor and consultant. After the event, reporters wanted to interview me. I declined politely. I wasn't doing this for publicity. I was doing it because Marcus Hammond had thrown me away, and I wanted him to choke on that decision. That night, I sat in my hotel room and finally let myself feel it. Pride. Real, uncomplicated pride in what I'd built and what it was becoming. I'd done this. Me. Not Marcus, not Trevor. Me. My healing didn't happen all at once. It came in small moments over months. The first time I slept through the night without anxiety. The morning I woke up without immediately checking work emails. The afternoon I laughed at something stupid Oliver did and realized I hadn't laughed in months. I started therapy. My therapist, Dr. Chin, helped me process what had happened. Not just the firing, but the years before it. The slow erosion of my self-worth. The way I'd let Marcus's approval become my measuring stick. You gave him power over your identity, she said gently. Now you're taking it back. It was hard work, harder than engineering. I had to sit with uncomfortable feelings, acknowledge how deeply the betrayal had cut me. I wrote letters I never sent, worked through anger and grief in equal measure. Slowly, carefully, I started to remember who I was before Hammond. The girl who loved science for its own sake. The teenager who built a solar oven for her middle school science fair. The young woman who chose engineering because she wanted to solve problems, not for approval or recognition. That person was still inside me. She'd just been buried under years of Marcus's manipulation. The news broke on a cold Monday in November. Marcus Hammond removed as CEO, effective immediately. I was making coffee when Jordan called, breathless. He's gone. The board voted him out. My hand froze on the coffee pot. What? It just went out. Company-wide memo. Leadership failure to secure critical intellectual property. That's the official reason. I sat down slowly, my legs weak. What about Trevor? Jordan laughed, sharp and bitter. Trevor's contract was terminated last week. The whole thermal storage division is being shut down. They can't continue without your technology, and they can't get it. Everything Marcus had tried to build on my work was collapsing. The project he'd stolen from me had become his downfall. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I felt quiet, settled. This wasn't the explosive revenge I'd imagined during those early days of rage. It was simply consequences, natural and inevitable. Marcus had made a series of bad decisions. He'd underestimated me, failed to secure vital intellectual property, and trusted a consultant over the person who'd built everything from scratch. The board had done what boards do. They protected the company by removing the liability. That liability just happened to be him. A week after Marcus's removal, Apex Energy offered me a senior position, Director of Thermal Innovation, reporting directly to Nina. The salary was staggering. The benefits were comprehensive. The respect was immediate. I sat in Nina's office, looking at the offer letter, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Can I think about it? I asked. Nina smiled. Of course. Take all the time you need. I went home and made a list. Pros: financial security, cutting-edge resources, brilliant colleagues, the chance to develop my technology fully. Cons: another boss, another company that could decide I was disposable, another structure where my value depended on someone else's approval. I called Stephanie. What if I consulted instead? Set my own terms, my own hours, worked with multiple companies. She was quiet for a moment. You'd have complete autonomy, but less stability. I don't need stability, I said, surprising myself. I need freedom. We spent the next week setting up my consulting business, Emily Vaughn Technologies. Just me, my expertise, and my terms. I called Nina and explained. She understood immediately. We'd love to have you as a consultant. Same rate, flexible schedule. I accepted, on my own terms. For the first time in my adult life, I didn't need a boss to validate me. I stood outside Apex Energy headquarters on a bright December morning. The sun was warm on my face despite the cold air. Inside that building were people who valued my work, who respected my knowledge, who saw me as essential. But I wasn't walking in as an employee. I was walking in as Emily Vaughn, independent consultant, owner of revolutionary technology, survivor of corporate betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Proud of you. Another from Jordan. You did it. Another from Dr. Chin. Remember how far you've come. I smiled and replied to each one. Then I walked into the building, my head high, my shoulders back. The receptionist greeted me warmly. Ms. Vaughn, Dr. Foster is expecting you in conference room B. Not Emily. Ms. Vaughn. The small sign of respect made something warm bloom in my chest. I rode the elevator up, watching the numbers climb. I thought about the woman who'd cried in her car, who'd packed her desk with shaking hands, who'd whispered her own name to remember she existed. She was still part of me, but she wasn't all of me anymore. I'd built something new from the ruins Marcus left. Something stronger. My new office was a quiet studio space in a renovated warehouse. Exposed brick walls, enormous windows flooding the room with natural light, a whiteboard waiting for my next idea. I'd decorated it simply. My degrees on one wall, the patent certificate on another, a photo of my family. Plants lined the windowsill, thriving under my actual care for the first time. Oliver had a bed in the corner and supervised my work with typical cat indifference. I worked when I wanted, how I wanted. Some days I started at dawn. Some days I didn't start until noon. I took breaks to walk along the river. I ate lunch sitting in the sun. I built technology because I loved it, not because someone was measuring my worth by it. Consulting contracts came steadily. Apex, plus 2 other renewable energy companies. I charged what I was worth, and they paid without question. I saved more in 6 months than I had in 3 years at Hammond. But the money wasn't the point. The freedom was. The autonomy. The knowledge that my value wasn't tied to someone else's approval. I'd get emails sometimes from former Hammond colleagues who'd left after Marcus's departure. They'd ask for advice, for connections, for hope. I helped when I could, sharing what I'd learned. You are not what they made you believe. You're more. Late one evening, alone in my studio, I pulled up an old photo on my phone. Me at 24, first day at Hammond Technologies, smiling so wide it looked like my face might break. I barely recognized her. That girl thought she needed Marcus Hammond's company to matter. She thought her worth came from working until she collapsed. She thought sacrifice and loyalty would protect her. I knew better now. My life was finally completely mine. I worked on technology that would change renewable energy infrastructure. I consulted for companies that respected my expertise. I slept well. I laughed often. I existed without constantly measuring myself against impossible standards. And my last thought as I closed my laptop and locked the studio door wasn't about Marcus Hammond or Trevor Caldwell or the company that threw me away. It was about her. That 24-year-old girl in the photo, eager and hopeful and so certain that hard work would be enough. She deserved better than what Hammond gave her. She deserved respect, recognition, autonomy, peace. I'd finally given it to her. I'd given it to myself. The revenge I'd needed wasn't Marcus's downfall, though that had been satisfying. It was this, my own life, lived on my own terms, valuable because I said so. Not because some CEO decided I mattered. Freedom wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady, quiet mine. And it was everything.